Hello, everyone. Welcome to the X Button, episode 4. We're doing things a little differently today because we want to kind of keep you on your toes and we kind of flip the chairs today. And I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and here is my lovely, the illustrious, the lovely
Oh my
Paul.
goodness.
How are you doing,
That's
Paul?
me. What's up, everybody?
How are you doing, Paul? It's been a while. It's been a
Uh,
minute. It's been a minute.
it's been a hot minute. I mean, we recorded one day early last week and one day late this week, so it just feels like it's been forever now.
Yeah, especially January itself has felt like it's been going forever, right? Like
hmm
today's January 31st, and man, it feels like this month couldn't finish soon enough, right?
You ain't lying.
Yeah, but
My
hey,
goodness.
we survived the first month of the new decade. Well, technically, it's still the previous decade, depending on the technicality of other people, but who cares? So,
Yeah.
Paul, what have you been up to in your
I
personal life? I haven't heard from you in a while.
personal life. Well, I had my engagement party. Had a bunch of
Nice.
family and friends over. They all celebrated us. I had some amazing bomb cake. It was beautiful stuff. They made all sorts of food, and we got to eat all of it. So it was like birthday parties, but you only get one of them.
Yes.
And
Well, you will be getting a lot of those, especially because then there's gonna be
yeah,
the bachelor party, and your lady's gonna have her bachelorette party, I would hope,
hmm
and any future baby showers in the future. I'm
yeah,
not
we'll
sure
see
how
how
soon
that plays out.
how soon you're ready for a baby
Yeah,
for 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 baby Edwards to come in.
oof, that's
So
that's a
yeah.
thought I didn't even really thought of, but
Mhm.
that is it always freaks you out whenever you think about the passing of time after a while. Like
Mhm.
I still sometimes mistake 1980 for 20 years ago, and it's been 40.
Can you believe
So,
that? We're
eh,
really at that point now that
oh,
it's like that was like 40 years ago. And they're like, oh
uh-huh.
man, the good old 80s, the era that we never experienced, but we always feel like huge attraction towards.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it because we were born in like the early 90s where everything from the 80s carried over into
Hmm.
us. And then, like, within the 5 years that we were alive, everything changed. So we were like, hey, this was cool. Okay,
Yes.
everything's different now. In any
Exactly.
case,
Yes.
talking about the passage of time and everything. So, speaking of messing with time, that makes me think of one of the things that I've been playing was the
Hmm.
new Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so
I know
probably
we'll
people.
talk more
Yeah,
about
we'll
it
talk more
later.
about it later. Yeah, they'll probably read the title of this episode, so they'll probably know what we're gonna talk about it. But yeah, so me, nothing new from my side other than just keep on working, getting screamed at people that are not paying their electric bill because
Oh,
that's
fun.
what. Yeah, and yeah, I had a fun one that someone made a payment and they said that they only want to pay like their past due balance and their whole card charged them the whole thing, and they
Oh,
came calling and screaming that that was their grocery money and that they were gonna call in their lawyer to like sue the place, and I just hang up the call.
oh, shoot.
I was like, I ain't got time for this. I'm not gonna let it be screamed when he already knows that we already issued that reimbursement that was he was gonna receive in 3 to 5 days, and I was like, yeah, no thanks. I'll let him scream into the void. I don't need to hear that. So
hmm
yeah, because people think that but just by screaming, despite them already being hearing, because the thing I saw that he had already called 3 times, so I'm like, you're not gonna get a new answer. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's like the downsides of customer service. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Also, before we begin, I just kind of want to give a shout out to like the tragic news that happened over last
Oh, true.
Sunday. Yeah, so for everyone that doesn't know, which I would imagine that they would know because it was a huge deal. Over in
Especially
the
by now.
sports side, we lost one of the greatest sports players ever, like arguably, or one of the more impactful ones. Good old Kobe Bryant passed away on a helicopter crash, which to me is like, how could that even have happened?
hmm
Like, and the worst part was hearing that it wasn't just him that passed away, but his daughter,
Yeah.
and just getting to see all this videos showing of him when he took his daughter to one of the games, and you can see that he was like explaining the dynamics of the game, and the
hmm
daughter kind of like complying before he would finish and seeing that she was getting it. and then seeing pictures that she was also playing basketball at her young age, man, it's like it really is. Just speaking of time, like it really goes to show like how fragile time can be, and
Hmm.
how out of a sudden, so we can be gone. So yeah, my condolences to the Bryant family and everyone at the NBA and everyone that really, really was a huge fan, because I'm technically not a huge fan of the NBA. I only watched like the finals, but growing up, I knew the big players like Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, uh, obviously Kobe Bryant, and then most recently, good old LeBron James. So yeah, that really put a huge dent on my week coming into it, especially when you broke the news to me, because I
Hmm.
was literally having lunch with my grandma and I heard my phone vibrating that I didn't even notice. I was just finished, and then when I came home and then I saw your text, I'm like, no way. And then I just saw like social media exploding over that. I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
could not believe. And you know what made it worse? The previous day was like when LeBron James completely overtook his record, his
Yeah.
point record. So that made it even sting more. I'm like, man, it's like LeBron overtook me, and then the next day this happens. That's like that was crappy timing there, but hey, yeah, I don't want to get too down on the dumps because of that, but yeah, I just kind of want to acknowledge it because this is a big thing that
Hmm.
happened coming into this week. So yeah, my condolences to the Bryant family. I assume you also, on behalf of you, I can say that we're both sending our condolences.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, but hey, the good thing about the video games and all this entertainment world is that we can escape from the weirdness that happens outside in our daily lives. So
Amen to that.
all right, Paul. So yeah, you kind of jumped the gun a little bit. You said you were saying that you had been playing Kingdom Hearts 3. But if let's save that conversation just for a little bit later. Have you
Yeah.
been playing anything else, or watched,
Well,
or seen anything like our usual shebang?
right. I did want to like kind of piggyback slightly on the Kingdom Hearts 3 because it caused me to replay the whole game in some way. So I started the critical mode of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Huh?
I
I.
also went farming just before I started critical mode to get Ultima Weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I made the final push, made me realize really how much I've missed a lot of this game,
Mm-hmm.
because I was burning through it so much that I wanted to finish the game before I actually
Got.
enjoyed it fully.
Mm-hmm.
And like it made me sit back. I was listening to the music, the background music of all things, which is
Mm-hmm.
not something I do. And I was like, for instance, anybody listening, go to Monstropolis on Kingdom
Mm-hmm.
Hearts 3. That is some Star Wars level music
Music, right?
because I don't know what it is. Like, look it up. The background music for Monstropolis has like that heavy, like John Williams trumpets, and it sounds like I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but if I heard it, I could tell you.
Mm.
It was like I think the ending song of A New Hope, where it's like bum bum ba da da,
Uh-huh.
and there's like a part of that that makes almost that exact like note progression, and it was like whoa, what is going on?
Is it when you're fighting the big heartless at the end of
Oh,
that
it's
world? Yeah.
what's crazy is it's just that's where what it normally is when I was running around making collectibles and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because I was like watching some videos to help me find all the treasure chests and the lucky emblems and things, and so I just kept hearing that music, and I was like, man, this is a banger. I could listen to this for a while.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
Kingdom Hearts has always had really great music all the way to the first games.
very true.
Yeah, I'm glad
I
that you
just
finally got to
yeah.
re-listen to it.
Yeah, because that's not something that I normally do. I'm much more of like that guy that's just kind of like, all right, let's keep this going. I might feel the effects of the music, but I won't
Hmm.
really listen for it. So
Yeah.
this like really helped me slow down. I was playing that a lot over this past week.
Hmm.
I dabbled a bit back into Smash Bros.
Hmm.
Um,
Good old Byleth, how was
Yep,
he?
trying to play them out, and I really enjoyed them actually because most of the DLC characters so far I have not been been going with. Like I tried Joker a little, just couldn't feel it. He was too fast for me. Terry, Banjo Kazooie, just wasn't feeling it. In Byleth though, not only because I played the game, Fire Emblem Three Houses that is, but
Hmm.
also just the move set that they got is surprisingly powerful because I'm like a big person for the big people, like the King K. Rool. I don't play him as much, but
Mm-hmm.
Ganondorf is my main guy. Like big guy, super armor, heavy hits. You get 3 good hits with Ganondorf, they're dead. So Byleth has a surprising amount of really powerful moves that will do a ton of damage. What with like the extra charged up bow shot, the down B with the giant axe that also has super armor. So as soon as I found that out, oh my goodness, that made me very happy. So they're not going to be like my new main, but I'm definitely putting them into the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was appreciative of it. I know like a lot of people have been griping about the fact that it's another like quote unquote blue haired anime
Mm-hmm.
character from Fire Emblem. I do want to mention their hair is green, not blue.
It still looks blue. You gotta admit, it still kind of
It
looks blue,
depends
and
on the
yeah.
light, but in the game itself, it's like a bright green color. Well, depends on when you're playing the game, but
Mm-hmm.
earlier on, it's like a aquamarine kind of look to it. So I'll give it that. And I do agree that I wish that there was like a bit more variation in like the way that they looked, because I was one of the people that didn't really like the way Byleth looked when Three Houses was introduced. But they've grown on me after a while.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, because I was just hearing, because I remember you texting your impressions about it, and then I just kind of want to dig up a little bit.
Hmm.
That it does seem that they did go out of their way to make him a little bit more varied in his moveset compared to like what you're used from Roy, Marth, and the
Oh
other
yes.
500,000 Fire Emblem characters that are in that freaking game. So still, in my opinion, I still haven't bought the fighter pass, and I don't think I will because I still don't care about that game
Yeah, that's
personally.
fine.
Yeah, but I always have fun because I laugh maniacally whenever there is a reveal, and it's not like what everyone wants because the discourse around Smash is always so
Hmm.
hilariously toxic. It's so funny. By the way, do you ever see PJ's reaction? I freaking love that.
I don't. I saw. He made that little impressions of Byleth while he
Hmm.
was playing as them, and he showed a quick clip of his initial reaction, and
Hmm.
he like just looked at the camera like Jim from The Office and just went,
Yes,
"Damn it!"
exactly. Yes, exactly. That's why. Because that remember, people woke up at 5 or 6 in the morning to see
Yeah.
that freaking character. So it was. We're getting 6 more reveals with the new fighter pass. So we still have so much hilarity to look forward
Oh,
to.
I'm so looking forward to it because this has been such a knocking out of the park for Nintendo, and I'd say even all of the series that they bring it into, because it's like this bold advertisement for the
Hmm.
game that the character is from.
Oh yeah.
And I think every time it shows up, like when Joker got into Smash, everybody was buying Persona 5.
Hmm.
Same thing with all the others. I mean, there's
And but just
a
interject,
thousand.
and that's what makes it hilarious because Persona 5 never came to
Excuse me.
any Nintendo
Right?
platform. So
I really thought
there,
that was going to be a thing.
yeah, I thought so too because it would make sense, right? It's like you're
Hmm.
promoting the character, then that means that it should be a preamble to a port of Persona 5, which personally I had been waiting for so much because that kind of turn-based RPG works better on handheld for me than on a big screen. But then they announced
Sure.
that whole Dynasty Warriors like Persona 5S that I don't
I
even
forgot
remember.
about that.
I don't even know when it's coming out, but I remember when they announced it, I was like, oh, well, that's a big bummer.
Hmm.
So it means that I'll never play that game, even though I have it installed on my console, but I just can't motivate myself for a 100,000 hour turn-based RPG on console. Ain't
Real.
nobody got time for that,
Hmm.
especially if you're not into turn-based. Sorry, PJ. I know you and your 10 people in the world that likes turn-based games are getting triggered right now, but I don't care. I like my other games. So, anything else you've been playing, Paul?
I actually, in following with our last conversation about Assassin's Creed, I did make the switch over to Odyssey just
Mm-hmm.
to, excuse me, to step forward into time and everything. I really gave it like a better shot. I started looking up a few things because with a game like that, I often get really
Sidetracked.
overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and sidetracked. Yes, I'll like get into this repetitive. Like I'll run through, I'll almost like skip all the dialogue because I don't want to hear it. I just want to play the game,
Mm-hmm.
and which is not usually how I am. But that just goes to show I really wasn't feeling the immersion,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. But
And also, just to interject there real quick, the immersion of that game takes a while before it
yes,
actually sinks in, and it's something that I've had trouble with when I have popped it back in because whenever I put the 84 hours that I always keep mentioning from
Hmm.
back in 2018, it took me a while before the hooks really sunk in and I couldn't stop playing it. But
Yeah.
then when you're trying to step back in and then you remember how freaking massive it is and you still have so many
Oh yeah.
question marks and all that, it really becomes daunting. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
continue.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what you're saying about certain games really need to learn how to respect people's time. Like, I can understand this is one of those games where, like, there's people out there that really want to sink their teeth into something big. I
Mm-hmm.
can definitely respect that. I wish it was a little easier to go through, though. So, anyway,
Yes.
I started actually paying more attention to, like, a couple of people on YouTube had better builds for their armor and their weapons and stuff, putting stat boosts and things, because I'm really terrible at that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact, like, every time I put in the effort to really maximize something, I enjoy the game so much more. So I
Yeah.
started, like, walking through the process of kind of changing some things up based on the way that I used to do it, and now, like, moving into some other things, changing the way my weapons worked. So I used like a staff now instead of my sword.
Mm-hmm.
I started using daggers more. I understood, like, how you need to use the daggers while you're assassinating people because
Mm-hmm.
that gives the better damage boost, and you can change the one awesome idea that they came up with for free was giving you the ability to change the look of the armor to all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of
Yes,
different.
that was the transmog, the
Yes.
famous transmogrification. Because I hated always having to switch to better stats that looked
Hmm.
uglier, but getting to the best stats and then make her look exactly as I wanted her to, my
Yes.
Cassandra to look. It's such. I wish every game that had customization would do that,
Same.
especially with stats, because it's just an embarrassment of riches getting all that armor that you can really customize and not feel that pressure of. I really want to have a cool looking character, but I don't want the game to be harder. I want it to look better. So.
Right. So yeah, that did that. I just changed the way I was playing. I did a lot more naval combat because in the past I'd really just kind of skipped past it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say it still feels like a step back from Black Flag. It just, you don't
Absolutely.
feel that
Mm-hmm.
power, but it's behind throwing some javelins and
Exactly.
shooting arrows. But I
Hey,
mean,
javelins and arrows are not cannonballs. I tell you.
yeah, they did their best. I'll
Mhm.
give them that because I mean, it's not like you can really do much with ancient Greece. Um, but it was a lot of fun running through everything. I still hate the horse mechanics. My
Mhm.
goodness, do I hate the horse mechanics?
Why? They're very smooth, especially compared to Red Dead's.
Well, yeah, but one, I'm kind of used to Red Dead now, but also the other issue is there's no sprint button for the
Mm,
horse. You run
yeah,
forward and they slowly pick up the speed and that's it.
that makes
And
sense. Yeah, they
oh
took out
man,
they took out the sprint for the auto riding
hmm,
when you hold the X button. So
right. And I
it's
keep doing that to this day that I'll accidentally hold the X button and then the horse like freaks out because it wants to follow the middle of the path. And oof. Well, anyway,
mhm.
yeah. So there's just a few things that I still had some struggles with. I always bite off more than I can chew with fights,
Mhm.
and end up getting myself in a lot of trouble with that. But in the grand scheme of it, I was enjoying it a lot. But then I started sinking my teeth deeper into Kingdom Hearts, and that took over most of my week.
Hey, to be fair, it's like that Kingdom Hearts thing is technically the biggest thing for us that's released so far this year
Hmm.
because we completely ignored Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. So
Hmm.
yeah, it makes sense that you would try to sink back your teeth back into it. I'm just
Really, though.
surprised that you actually went back and played the entire game. I thought you were only going to do the DLC, which is what I did.
Me too.
So
But as we'll get into the details of the DLC later, but
mhm,
I felt like I needed to get more out of my time coming back to Kingdom Hearts,
yeah,
and we'll talk about that later.
exactly. Just real quick, was you playing through Kingdom Hearts 3 now again like this? Was it a symptom of you wanting to rush that game through back in last year? Yeah, out of fear of being spoiled or anything? Was that the reason?
Definitely,
Yeah, yeah, and I
that was
know.
a large reason for sure.
Yeah. So
Uh,
and obviously it made you enjoy it way less, right?
oh yes, I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as like understanding, because in the grand scheme of it, that game is super polished, and I didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going through the first time. I mean, there's a couple of times where the lighting is weird, but
Mm-hmm.
then sometimes you'll get like this gorgeous, like one directional light, and I'm like, my gosh, this is a beautiful game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but the thing is that that game is like both ugly and beautiful. Like
Hmm.
you can tell that that game initially started on PS3 at some point, and
Yes.
then there are some other sections like when in the song section of the Tangled level,
Oh.
where with all the
Hmm.
lights when Flynn is singing the song to
Yeah.
Rapunzel, and then Sora and Goofy and Donald are just sitting there with like all this. I was like, that's incredibly beautiful.
Hmm.
With that, it's like that's the Pixar quality that we have been waiting for a game to do that.
Right.
So yeah, so those were the three games that you've been playing.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much everything that I've played over this week.
All right, so my turn then. And so and not you didn't see anything like any TV shows,
Oh,
movie.
that does remind me. I haven't seen anything, but hearing, I went in and found the soundtrack on Spotify for Doom,
Ooh,
and oh my goodness, that was actually a crazy experience because
makes you
somebody
want to grab the
mentioned.
shotgun and go to hell and
Oh
blast
yeah,
some demons, right?
I actually worked out to that soundtrack
Hmm.
the twice last week, and that was a very fun experience to
Yes.
just go absolutely in on that. So that was what I heard, and I don't think I've really seen anything this week at least. So
Yes.
go
Uh,
ahead.
and just like since you mentioned Doom, the previews came out around the time that the last time that we recorded, and
Oh
people are
yeah,
saying Game of the Year, early Game of the Year candidate, and that
dang.
thing comes out in March. So yeah, like the gaming tsunami is like it's slowly coming,
Oh yeah,
but when it hits us,
it's
it's gonna
gonna
hit
hit.
us hard. But in the meantime, we got all this quiet time, which I've still been taking advantage of. So
Hmm.
last week I had mentioned how I had gone back to Assassin's Creed and playing the first game, and I also made an offhanded comment about how it ran like ass on PS3. It was like so, and it was so funny whenever we recorded because later that day I actually went and acquired an Xbox One.
Yes, you mentioned that on the show, even that you
Yeah.
were planning on going straight from there to go
Yeah,
do that.
actually, I didn't. I think we mentioned it in our post-show conversation. So
Oh yeah.
listeners didn't listen to that. So yeah, before we had recorded before in last week's episode, I went to the Facebook Marketplace and I saw that someone was selling their OG Xbox One in good condition for $150, and a week before, and I had completely missed that news. Microsoft Game Studio director right now. His name is Matt Booty. I am not even kidding. His name is Matt Booty. Yeah, and he doesn't got a booty. I'm just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
And he had mentioned that the Xbox Series X was not gonna have any true exclusives for the first year or 2 years of the console's lifespan because they wanted to honor anyone that still had an Xbox One or had recently acquired an Xbox One X in the year or two prior, so that they didn't feel that they got gypped by buying a new console. And then there's another one where new games are gonna come out and they won't be able to play it. So on that note, I was like, I feel the Xbox Series X is going to be very expensive, and I still want to experience some of the games that they've shown, especially if they say they're going to be an Xbox One. Plus,
Mhm.
I don't have a 4K TV yet here, so I'm like, I'm fine with 1080p or getting close. Like my TV upscales really well, so I was
Yeah.
like, yep, $150, that'll do, and I got an Xbox One and popped in my old 360 disc on of the original Assassin's Creed. Even though I had already done 3 assassinations on PS3, I didn't care doing it again because my God, Paul, it's night and day playing Assassin's Creed on PS3 and compare it to the 360 version, which is the one I originally played it off. It's like that game still looks current. It's insane. Like I don't know what is it about the visual style of the original Assassin's Creed, but getting to see it with the upscale 1080p and running really smooth on the 360 version, especially emulated on Xbox One, I'm like,
Hmm.
man, that game still holds up and it's 13 years old. I think it has something to do with the lighting and the filming techniques that they used for like the art style. But
Hmm.
yeah, it just made me enjoy it way more, and I got to beat it in a full day. In my rest day, like I was like, I did all 9 assassinations back to back, back to back. It felt good getting the achievements again of the things that I had missed, and then I had forgotten the complete crazy ending or how sudden the ending is of the original.
Yeah,
Whenever
really.
you're in the lab and then you see spoiler people, but It's been 13 years. I don't care. Whenever you start getting eagle vision and then you see the pentagram
Oh yeah.
in written in blood on, you're like, what the heck has happened here? And then you see like everything like covered in blood, and like that
Mhm.
was like the beginning of like the intrigue of that series for me, and it started getting a little more Da Vinci Code, but
Oh yeah.
I feel that's what made it cooler in a way, because it's like, huh, so this is just not gonna be just like a historical retelling. It's gonna be like an actual lore here, and uh,
Right.
yeah, and then I dabble a little bit on two because I'm like, oh yeah, I have it installed here. Let's dive on two, and boy, man, speaking of a game that doesn't hold up
Yeah.
visually, I don't know what happened with the visuals of Assassin's Creed 2, but AC2 looks better in architecture, but it's way worse in
So
faces.
I found something out about that they actually tried to do edits
Mhm.
to the Xbox One and PS3
PS4
wait,
version.
yeah, that's what I meant. Xbox One and PS4
Mhm.
version, and they made it look way worse. I saw some
Especially in the Xbox One version.
yeah,
Yeah, you see the
and
one with the big lips, the character with the big
oh,
lips.
dude, that's horrifying. It's
Yeah.
very similar to what they did with the Arkham series, and they like
Hmm.
tried changing things for whatever
Yeah.
reason, I guess, to add fidelity or resolution.
Yeah, the Arkham games, the case was that the original games were made on the graphics engine Unreal Engine 3, and for the collection they wanted to port those games to Unreal Engine 4.
Hmm.
But the weird thing is that Unreal Engine 3 and 4 have different lighting configurations and texture streaming and all that, so that whenever these games were ported with their assets to 4, they looked worse, and
Mm,
it looked grimier, and that was unfortunate. And I kind of appreciate that they actually took it, because they could have just put the PC games up resting and just and call it a day. But in that case, I'm like, yeah, that was effort that was probably a waste of time. You could have easily just ported the PC versions that looked already well. But um, I know about the retouching that they did to the remaster collections. I actually have the 360 version of Assassin's Creed 2, which actually in its
nice.
original form still looks better than what they remastered it with. However, that game still had ugly faces. It's like
Hmm.
I wonder if they focused so much on the architecture and the animation and all that they completely forgot to add detail to the faces. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. But when I was playing Assassin's Creed, you know what? Another game that I just couldn't stop thinking about it, because before I replayed one, I had played this game before. When I mentioned I played the reboot of Prince of Persia,
Hmm.
I was like, I kind of want to go back and play Prince of Persia. So back again to the PS3 I went and played Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time from 2003. Uh, what a game! What a lovely. I'm realizing how influential that game is to the games I really like.
Hmm.
Uncharted got inspired by this thing. Like the things I like about the Uncharted series,
Oh yeah.
they originated here. A lot of the combat that you see in Batman, or like what eventually was the combat in Assassin's Creed and all that, also had its origins there. And yeah, I'm playing through that trilogy now. But in between that, I played all that because it had released, and I wanted to make it the topic of the show. Yeah, I was also playing the Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC, and I have a lot to say. So, Paul, you ready?
Oh
Ready,
yes.
ready for topic of the show?
Let's do this.
Yeah, so it's called Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. I think the better name would be Kingdom Hearts 3 Ripoff. Like,
Uh,
wow. Like, wow.
let's just
Wow.
start it right out the gate.
Yeah.
Boy, was that a trip that did not need to cost that much money.
No, no, no. For like 80% recycling, and for you to replay the last section of the game, where
Hmm.
the only things that were changing just was just seeing Sora in its hard form, as he was like trying to influence some of the events that are kind of like, okay, this doesn't really need to be over explained like this. That this is what happened because he had already time travel as a heart to try to like change outcomes and all that. And then for them to add the option for you to briefly play as the other characters that, and at that point they actually feel way weaker than your Sora at that point.
Yeah.
um, and then you're basically going through a whole end section where you're playing as you're fighting all Organization 13, and every time that you defeat one, you have to see the whole cutscene of them saying their goodbyes before they disappear over like 13 times, and
Hmm.
uh, and only changing by whenever you go to the original Keyblade Master Kingdom, what Skyla whatever that
Scala
was,
ad Kylum.
yeah, a Scala Chiron. Thank you. And that being the only time where that game felt like that DLC felt like, okay, they've added a couple sections here. Okay. and then you go to that part where you're playing as every character and was basically a glorified QuickTime event.
Mm.
And then before that you have to like, dude, what my favorite thing about Kingdom Hearts is the fetch quest, the finding pieces. Remember the
Oh,
300 crabs?
yeah.
So yeah,
We don't talk about that.
yeah, and finding the pieces of heart for Kyrie,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then yeah, it was cool seeing the visual of you of every character all together, and then fighting against all the pieces of Xehanort. And but it was just quick time event. Press like a triangle here, press triangle here again, and then a block here, triangle, and then you're playing as Mickey. You're like, oh my god, they're finally letting us play as Mickey, and he's just walking. And you just have to press the button to kind of block and attack as he's slowly walking
Oh
and
man.
walking.
Like I get that was supposed to be that really heavy height moment, but it took way too long to do
Yeah,
all that.
yeah. And to me, it's like that reminded me of. Do you ever play Metal Gear, the Metal Gear Solid series?
Yes, I did.
Do you play Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots?
I did.
So,
Oh my gosh, I know what you're talking about.
yeah. So that I thought that's what it was reminding
The
me of.
microwaves.
The microwave scene, but way less cooler, way
Oh
less
my god.
emotional, and it's just you pressing the triangle or whatever button is
Uh-huh.
telling you whenever you need, and that's it. And then the game ends with you. The DLC ends with you with Kyrie fighting again the another essence of Xehanort, and that's the first time that you can play as Kyrie. And I tried playing with her. I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Finally,
Mm-hmm.
you're literally you play as a damsel in distress, which by the way was a damsel in distress again that you just rescued, and you're
Yeah.
fighting as her, and her fighting is floaty AF, floaty like you. I was feeling like the hits were not even hitting. I was like, is this even working? And I was getting like slammed because she was level 1 when my Sora was like level 50 or 60 something. I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah,
Dang.
yeah, because I did play a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3 back in last year when I did the review for Statics. And
Well, I was more surprised about the Kyrie being level 1 because I never really had a lot of issues with damaging him.
yeah, yeah, for some reason I don't know if it was something with what was happening with my version, but she just wasn't hitting hard enough. It didn't feel like the hard hit, like when you're playing with Zora and you hit, you feel the thing that I like about Kingdom Hearts is the combat. Like whenever something hits and it hits, you feel the force feedback when it's hitting. And there's just something weird about how Kyrie felt to me. I was like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So, and then the game ends with almost sort of seeing a montage of the same ending, which by the way, for some reason still made me tear up at the end. There's just something about like hearing that song and seeing like all the reunions and all that. And I'm like, it just really tugs at the heartstrings.
Right.
And it was the same thing. And I'm like, okay, $30 for this.
Mm-hmm.
And then the limit cut episode opened. I'm like, okay, let's see what it is. And then you see that cut scene where you finally see a Final Fantasy characters that were not in the
Oh my goodness.
in the game. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. It's good to see Aerith and Leon and Sid again. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see because that was actually the first time that I felt, oh, this is actually something new. It was only one cutscene.
Yep.
And what happens after that?
Mm-hmm. You go into play as a Data Sora again,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it.
Yep. And you have to fight through Organization 13's versions of boss fights again, but they're now the data fragments that are similar to Kingdom Hearts 2's final mix. Whenever you found like those tears in some of the worlds, the ones that are super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I almost broke a controller. I beat them all, by the way.
I am very impressed that you were able to do that. I tried 3 attempts.
And you got a one hit. Who was the one that one hit you?
Actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure all of them did.
Yeah.
Let me think who I tried first. I tried Xemnas because I was like, I beat him in Kingdom Hearts 2. I know his move set.
Nope.
That didn't work.
No, because the combat in Kingdom Hearts 3 has a different sandbox than Kingdom Hearts 2.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's way messier on 3 compared to like the tighter 2. So yeah, that was not gonna work.
I tried Xemnas. I tried whoever was like the second closest, not Marluxia, but I think I played Luxord, which apparently they pronounce his name weird now. It's
Luxor.
like Luxord or I don't know.
By the way, so speaking of voices, do you notice that they changed the voice of Master Xehanort?
You know, I thought something was kind of off about him. Like I always get distracted by Xemnas's sultry, like honey flowing through
Mm-hmm.
something really awesome. I don't know, but I got distracted. Like, what was the deal with Xehanort then?
So Xehanort, the actor Rutger Hauer passed away last year.
Oh, I
So
see.
they recasted him. So they put good old the Doc Brown as his voice now.
Oh
Chris,
my goodness, that's
Christopher
why.
Christopher Lloyd. It's not the voice of Xehanort.
Oh my gosh,
Yep.
that's amazing. I
Uh,
didn't even. Oh, I should have seen it.
yeah. And it just started. Eventually,
I
he
can hear
started.
his voice in my head now.
Exactly. That's what I'm telling you. Right? It's
Oh,
he
I didn't
yeah.
realize
It's good
that.
old Doc Brown now. And they did revoice some of his lines. Even though you're starting to see some of the repeats
Right.
during the initial part of the DLC. But yeah, they changed his voice, and I feel it sounds a little better. It's just so weird that he is becoming the equivalent of the Aaron Ramsey curse. This Aaron Ramsey is a soccer player from Arsenal over in England that
Okay.
whenever he scored a goal, a famous actor would die like within days.
Whoa.
So his Master Xehanort initially was voiced by Leonard Nimoy, the guy Spock from Star Trek,
Oh, that's right.
and he passed away a couple years ago. So Rutger Howard
Excuse me.
took over. Yeah, Rutger Howard got took over the role for Kingdom Hearts
Mm-hmm.
3, and then he
And then
passed
he
away.
died. Oh my gosh.
So I hope nothing happens to good old Doc because he's actually really old at this point. But
He
and
is.
yeah, so it's just so funny that the ever revolving, the ever revolving boys train that is Master Xehanort. So, but yeah, and then fighting those bosses was just like it was the hard content that a lot of Kingdom Hearts may probably were asking, but I don't think $30 for
Mm.
that.
Maybe like
It's
10.
yeah, it probably 10 would have actually been kind of a value. I would even go as far as saying that,
Okay.
but like when you charge $30 for this, when both the DLCs for The Witcher, one of them that is 30 hours long,
Mm-hmm.
it's packed together with its other DLC for like $25, you know something went horribly wrong here. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm finding the equivalent of what he did, what Nomura did here with this DLC, it reminds me of the final mixes that he did for Kingdom Hearts, which, to be fair, if we want to call a spade, he actually re-released games, full games with the new content.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that what was different there was that whenever you play it, when did you play Kingdom Hearts 2?
In like 2000, maybe like 7 or 8, I think.
Okay, so around the time that it came out in 2006, so it's still on PS2,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, he released it then, and then the final mix came here to America on PS3 in
Mm-hmm.
2014 because the final mix
Right.
was only released in Japan, and those final mixes are the ones that always have the hidden boss at the end. So the
Right.
original final mix had the Semnes boss wherever you fought the dragon from Maleficent
Mm-hmm.
in Hollow Bastion. Whenever you go back there in the post game, and then you find the hooded guy with the Jedi red sword,
Yes.
that was super difficult. That was just part of the final mix.
Uh-huh.
And then on Kingdom Hearts 2 in the final mix, that they added also the boss fight, a couple of boss fights that you actually get to fight Roxas near
Uh-huh.
the end, like that super boss fight, the super hard boss fight with the with the Roxas ghost, sort of. And then at the end, you find the armor for Terra to kind of like set up Birth by
Oh, yeah,
Sleep.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
I
also in the
tried
final mix.
attempting that.
Yeah, and that was also incredibly hard.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also part of the final mix. To be fair with this final mixes, they came out almost a decade separate from each
True.
other. This time is basically him updating the game to be sort of a final mix, but it's for $30 and it happens a year after. So I think expectations are a little different now, and it's just not acceptable. That's way too much to charge for the bare minimum. The
Mm-hmm.
final cutscene, though, after you beat the final cut, I would say it's interesting because I don't know if you got this vibe whenever it was teasing the secret ending back when the original game came out, that Tetsuya Nomura was basically trying to do Final Fantasy versus 13 again, But now
Yeah. Oh
this
my
time
goodness.
through Kingdom Hearts.
I haven't even like started on that nonsense.
Yeah, so I feel like the way the DLC ends, because there's a final boss fight. Once you beat all these final boss fights, and then at the end of that final boss fight, you see a recreation of the exact same cutscene of the trailer for Versus 13
Dude.
from back in 2011, and I got
Hmm.
chills. I got chills because I was like, "Is this actually gonna happen?" Because
Dude.
let's not forget, Versus 13 was a project that Nomura got taken out from.
Yep.
Yeah, that got ripped away from him. It was given to Hajime Tabata, and he reworked it and made it Final Fantasy 15,
Right.
and took out a lot of it. It had still a lot of the characters. It had a lot of the uh, it had a lot of the essence of what he wanted to do, but the actual point of the game completely changed.
Oh yeah.
Even some characters, like the main girl that ended up becoming Luna Freya, that was originally gonna call Stella, I think.
Yep.
Uh,
He was
you
gonna be like the rival
Mhm.
fighter character. I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah. So
Oh
Stella was completely eliminated from Final Fantasy 15. She
yeah.
completely got jettisoned from that, from what that game ended up being. So, but you see remnants of that in the Josora thing in this
Hmm.
thing. So yeah, it's like I was incredibly underwhelmed by the value proposition of this thing, and even then the utter annoyance of this boss fights. But that tease, I'm like, I hope Kingdom Hearts 4 comes soon. Doesn't take 13 years,
Yeah.
because if this is actually a chance for Nomura to kind of do what he actually wanted to do for Versus 13, and actually
Hmm.
doing it in a series that's still very popular for some reason, I'm kind of glad to see an essence of that being remade now through Kingdom Hearts. And to be fair, that game was supposed to feel more like Kingdom Hearts because
True.
it was his. So yeah, for anyone that probably was listening to this and we're probably gonna buy it, I think I just saved you $30. I think we just saved you $30 because
Yeah. Stick with the
you're
free DLC that comes with Kingdom Hearts
exact
3.
exactly. You stick with the being able to change difficulties
Hmm.
from any time in the game now, instead of having to restart the whole game.
Except for
Uh,
critical mode. I don't think you can change
no,
that.
critical mode is its own thing.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely not worth it, and it was a bummer because they said that this is the only DLC that this Kingdom Hearts game was gonna have, and I'm like, what a waste.
Yeah.
What a freaking waste. Paul, if we were to score it in our statics media,
Oh.
because we went back to the 10-point scale. So I just put it back. So it's just that 10 stars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, and all the
Oh,
way to
so
5.
we're gonna be we're gonna
Yeah.
do the Kingdom Hearts numbering.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
man,
Three stars. 3 stars.
honestly, that does feel about right. Just because most of it is already part of the game,
Mm-hmm.
or like it's the same cutscenes, it's the same gameplay. The only thing that I can list that is different is the brief, like 10 minutes worth of cutscenes, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that are added on to already existing cutscenes of spring,
Mm-hmm.
and the extra character fights, which I believe there's only, let's see, because you already play Aqua in the main game.
Mm-hmm.
So you play as Roxas, you play as Kyrie, and you have like two extra fights. At one is Aqua and one is Riku, and then they had that whole people fight
Mm-hmm.
in the sky, which I will say that was awesome.
It was visually stunning. It was incredible looking.
Yes.
Like I said, like visually, this game's still top of the line. Like there's
Oh
like
yes.
the scale and all that. I'm not gonna deny that. It's still not worth $30.
It
This
is
is like
not.
it is not worth $30 for for the travesty that is reusing a lot of that stuff just for those tiny things. Those are just few minutes,
Mhm.
tiny few minutes of this whole $30 thing, and yeah. So it's like diehards may get a kick out of it, but I would wait for a sale. I would wait. Yeah, if you find it eventually at $15, maybe $10. I think $10 is like, yeah, do it. It's like $10 is how much a movie costs these days,
Yeah.
probably. Or renting it twice if you're one of
Shoot, if
those.
you get it digitally, it's like $6.
Exactly. So, if you want to buy it like that, I would say buyer beware. Wait until it's because $30 for this is just definitely no. It's a big, huge no. It's like I can't believe that that Square Enix thought that this would be okay, but oh well, it's Square. Square
I
they
think. I think one main reason why it has so few things is I believe that they took whatever they had an idea for with this DLC, and because of all of the different criticisms and fears, and like this doesn't get explained, that doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
explained, how does Roxas come back? Why does this happen? And they were like, okay, shoot, we need to come up with some like quick context using our usual amount of Kingdom Hearts confusing levels
Mm-hmm.
to
Come
say this
straight
is
up
why
nonsense.
this
Oh my god.
happens.
Oh my god. 45 minutes is when you pop that thing, you don't play anything. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
straight up nonsense.
cutscene.
It's just cutscene after cutscene after cutscene of just mumbo jumbo. That's like, to me, it's like I feel it's because I had been out of it at that point. Because whenever I played 3, I had just played the entire series just a few months prior, so I was still kind of into forgiveness mode of all this nonsense. But coming back to it a year later, holy crap! Holy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it really needs to be a less is more moving forward, which I believe I may be optimistic, but with Tetsuya Nomura like really clearly trying to set the stage for what he wants, he has a very clear idea of where he wants us to go. I believe he's just
Mm-hmm.
giving us glimpses of it. With this whole new like the Verum Rex Yuzora thing, like apparently they have a very similar. Actually, I want to talk briefly about Yuzora as well because one is in the main game. A lot of people mistake Yuzora for Sora,
Mm-hmm.
both in like the way their outfit is almost identical,
Mm-hmm.
um,
But
the
he
way they're
looks like Riku. That's
he
the thing.
does. That's what
Yeah.
Sora corrected him on, but everybody else is perceiving them as the same dude for some reason. Which I don't know if you remember. The same thing happened with Kyrie and Shion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People were literally seeing her as Kyrie. It's also mentioned. I don't want to get. I'm gonna sound weird. In the manga for 358 over 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
it is literally drawn. Shion is drawn as Kyrie based on the perspective of whoever's looking at her at the time, depending on who it is.
Mm-hmm.
So normally she has the black hair, but like for certain people like Zigbar and Riku, they will literally see Kyrie's face and
Mm-hmm.
hair and everything.
Yeah, kind
Um,
of like Organization 13 always kept calling Sora Roxas throughout
right.
Kingdom Hearts 2.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So back to that, I think there's definitely something similar to that going on. I believe like because it seems like Yuzora has his own universe that he's been doing his thing with,
Mm-hmm.
and Sora is now crossing over to that because they're having like these weird dreams that are crossing over. When
Mm-hmm.
you fight Yuzora, like slight spoiler alert for anybody that has not played this DLC or hasn't seen the final secret boss or whatever. When
Mm-hmm.
you fight Yuzora, he takes the power of your Keyblade and uses
Mm-hmm.
it against you
Yeah.
for a large portion of the fight. And then when you beat him, he does the exact same movement of dying in like cutscene, mini cutscene as when Sora dies, where
Mm-hmm.
he like falls back and then like floats on his back in the air. And that was like, oh shoot, that's
Yeah.
like they didn't even really try poking like hey look at this thing. It was just kind of
Yeah, it's like they weren't even being subtle about it. It's like it was very overt.
Zora.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it was very overt. Uh, it was just very clear that they're trying to do something very unique when moving forward.
Yes, and I think you said it back in our Game of the Year discussion that you thought you were out, but they pulled you back in.
Yeah.
That's I didn't feel that way when I finished 3 because I found it satisfying back then before I started thinking more about the problems. That with this DLC, I was that I'm out after
Uh-huh.
going through those boss fights and then seeing that whole thing and the final cutscene with the resemblance to Versus 13. Then they pulled me back in. So
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 4 or whatever they decide calling it, because remember we went through like a million spin-offs before that were
Yeah.
actually not spin-offs before we got to
Right. They
3.
were all like required reading. They weren't
Yeah.
spin-offs at all.
Yeah, I still
Um,
feel bad for everyone that jumped from 2 to 3, which I know many did.
yeah.
I know many did.
I
I'm
can
glad I
only
didn't. I'm glad I didn't because I experienced it all in the collections that came to PS4 where everything was
right.
there all in package. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
was
so the DLC is okay. In our scale, 3 out of 5 is okay. So
3 out of 5. I was saying 3 out of 10.
oh no, oh crap. You were thinking 1.5 out of 5 in our scale.
Yeah, I was
Ooh.
not gonna be happy with that at all. I didn't
Okay,
think it was worth
okay. You say
anything.
1.5. I say 3. Let's
Yeah,
let's
okay,
meet let's meet in the middle.
that's
2 out of
fair.
5. 2 out of
All
5.
right,
Yeah. There you go. So
Um,
this is our first official DX button review discussion and slapping a score at the end.
yeah,
So,
really. Who knows how arbitrary that's going to be, but
oh yeah, but
um,
just to kind of give some fun,
right.
because I think this is either going to be called Kingdom Hearts 3 ripped off or Kingdom Hearts 3 review. I think whatever the title ends up being, you'll know what the title ends up being. Okay, so guys,
Yeah,
whenever
we'll
you
figure it
guys
out
listen
one
in
day.
that. But yeah,
Um,
what a little bit of a bummer to kind of start ourselves with this. So,
but there's a
but yeah.
silver lining
Mm-hmm.
because this is what I was going to mention earlier on that we decided to hold off on was that causing because I played through this and I burned through it and I was like, what the heck is this? It caused me to be like, you know what? I have it installed. I have it on here. I want to try finally making that final push to get the Ultima weapon, which I had already
Mm-hmm.
done a couple of things, but not nearly like all the 7 items that you have to get for the Orichalca Plus and all the other things. So I started working towards that. I watched some of the last videos. I only had like 2 or 3 more worlds to collect all of the items.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through like the gummy ship mission. I had already like built a really awesome gummy ship out just from scratch because I wanted to try it out and made a monster on accident somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed like all the gummy ship stuff, which I really think got breezed over by a lot of people. Um, Unfortunately, because it's a pretty awesome like bullet hell mini game
Mm-hmm.
inside of this, and you could play a lot of it too. So like I went through, I fought all of those bosses that you have to fight until you unlock the like Omega machine, I believe it was called, and that fight was crazy because you're like hovering in a circle around this giant like pink star destroyer almost. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or glowing pink, and there's just bullets everywhere. There's missiles coming at you. And I struggled with it for a while because I realized that like no matter how much health you have, it'll take you out really quick. But you just like playing Kingdom Hearts, you realize there's so much more depth to it. Where like being able to kind of bait all of the laser bolts into one direction and evading out of the way at the last second, using different moves to negate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing, and it ended up having like 4 stages that boss fight.
Really? Huh.
Yes. So like you go through it, and I'm like, it's taken me forever because I'm having to dodge and shoot this one specific part of the boss. And I'm like, all right, awesome. I shot it. Why is it not ending? And then like I go to the bottom of it where there's another part that I have to shoot. That starts a whole different like segment of like attacking and missiles coming from
Mm-hmm.
different places, different laser bolts that I have to like go above and below and above and below at the same time as shooting all of my missiles. And then after beating that, you have to go back to the top, fight it again. And then I was like, all right, this has got to be it, right? No,
Yikes.
because when you kill it the third time, it opens up and you have to fight the middle portion of it, which I will say it gets progressively easier, I say, because the first one was the hardest for me. But once you get past that point, like when I got to the fourth stage, I got it in one fight. But my goodness, was that a really rewarding fight to win at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got Ultima Weapon finally, and that sucker is a monster of a Keyblade. And I started critical mode immediately after getting Ultima Weapon.
And it completely changed everything, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was like, I mean, for the first couple fights, because you're in like that dream state, you still have the Kingdom Key, you're still struggling, you die in like one hit. But it was like intense, and I was really having to like, all right, I gotta block, I gotta dodge, I gotta do some of these other things, and they give you like certain mobility boosts that let you like really help you out with that. Um, and then I found out you can like block in the air, dodge out of it, and then block again to like give you more
Mm.
invincibility frames and stuff like that. I was like, this is like, I almost said Dark Souls, and I didn't want to be that kind of guy. I was like,
Hey, but
it's,
it can be as hard as that sometimes. So hey, you're totally
but it's
um
like the mechanics are specifically tailored so that it's fair, more fair than the way that it would be if you just cranked up the difficulty and gave everybody a ton of health.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I was really enjoying it. And then when you're playing with Ultima Weapon on critical mode, it's totally different because it's even though they nerf it back a whole lot, the strength of it is crazy. And like so your ultimate form is amazing, does a ton of damage, has a wide area of effect. And then I found out, I don't remember what it's called, but you know when you hold R1 and you
Mm-hmm.
go into like zoom mode and you kind of like charge up and you do a bunch of attacks. Well,
Mm-hmm.
for the ultimate weapon, there is one attack that you can do from that. But that one move is a literal nuke that you
Really.
use, and it has one-shotted so many enemies. Like, you know, like that whole group of enemies come in and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, there's a bunch of heartless all over here. I'll charge up and you hold on to it, and it takes like 5 seconds to zoom in and lock onto it, like a rocket launcher to a Harrier or whatever. But then once it's up, Sora like does his little spin and he just has this giant white light come out of his keyblade and it just nukes everything. And that has gotten me through a lot of this so far. I've killed bosses with that in a few hits. It's been amazing. So I'm really excited to like keep it up at this point. I
Mm-hmm.
burned through like a couple of days ago, just wasting time on Kingdom Hearts 3 critical mode,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it way more than I expected. So
Hey,
I at
keep
least,
playing because I think you'll have more value with that than this actual DLC. So,
oh,
and
absolutely,
and the thing is, you didn't even need a DLC to be able to enjoy that. So, yeah,
yeah,
I say 2 out of 5 for us then for Kingdom for this DLC, but 4 out of 5 for the game still, in my opinion.
yeah.
It's
I'll hold
yeah.
to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially now with critical mode and the Oathkeeper and Oblivion keyblades being added in, and that whole move is awesome.
Yeah.
To be able to use both of the keyblades, it's just great.
Exactly. So yeah, unfortunately, it's sad that the Kingdom Hearts 3 story, at least release wise, has to end on a bit of a bummer note because of the wasted opportunity of this DLC. However, I still say that we still have a lot to look forward to for the rest of the year, especially because good old Nomura is still working on one of our most anticipated games of this year, which actually got a trailer that released earlier this morning.
Yeah, boy.
So Paul,
Alejandro, what segment are we in right now?
all right, Paul, I want you to press the X button because it's time for some news. There you go.
All right. So, yes, the first thing that I see when I wake up this morning is that the new Final Fantasy VII remake trailer came out, and oh my goodness, they showed so much new stuff that I did not think I would ever see in that remake video
Mm-hmm.
game. One of which being, oh my goodness, the what was it? The Honey something. The place. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically like a strip club, but Cloud has to cross dress to get
Uh-huh.
into it. And I thought they would downplay that honestly, but they hyped it up so much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We actually get to see Cloud walking through gameplay of him in a black dress,
Mm-hmm.
looking gorgeous. They have the dude
By
that's
the
playing.
way,
Oh my
the visuals of this thing,
Oh
wow,
yeah,
right? Yeah, it's like
fantastic.
it just keeps getting better. Like they said that they needed the extra polish time. Yeah, to keep polishing because oh my god, that trailer is just looks so lovely.
I will
It's
give him that.
so oh my god, it's so yeah, it's so freaking lovely how it's looking. And so are you more and more convinced what I've been telling you that even though it's just part one, it's they're actually making this a meaty thing?
I am slightly closer to believing it because I will
Mm-hmm.
say that was already in the first like the game itself. I very vividly remember that and having to sneak it from my parents because even though the graphics were terrible, I didn't want them to think like, yes, I'm playing as a cross-dressing man in a strip club. And the graphics you could get away with a lot because it was little pixelated stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
my goodness, they were really going all out with all the setups of that. They did have some new things, like that one director that looked like the Dragoon lady from Final
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy 15. I don't remember her being in the original game personally. I may be wrong, but
Mm. It's
they
because
looked like
they've been adding a lot. They've said a lot how they're not just like straight up copying and doing like a frame by frame remake of this thing just
right.
because they're adding stuff. They're taking the essence and the sort of like some sort of plot points that that the original game had, but they're like remixing it for it to
Mhm.
feel like a whole new game that with a whole new story that it really is a remake. It really is a
Yeah.
remake of something that we've already seen before. And I still say that. I feel that thing at least will take us to 20 to 30 hours of things. I do believe that, based on what they're saying and the size of the thing. 2 discs, remember? If you go the good old disc,
Yeah, that
yeah, it's gonna be
blew
two
my
discs.
mind.
So that should tell you that at the very least, yeah, the textures are gonna be insane based on how good that thing looks. But yeah, it's just seeing more of that, and plus all the previous trailers that I saw around this time last year, and then A3, and then a little later that year. Yeah, there's more to that game that meets the eye, and we're only 2 months away from it, and April 10th.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so yeah,
Oh,
take that all the time. But yeah, it's I feel if this trailer had come before our second episode, I think this would be my number one game for
mm,
the year right now. Especially because it's so early,
yeah.
but it's just looking so good. It's just looking so good, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But hey, we'll just have to keep waiting because the gaming tsunami is still coming
Very
slowly.
true.
It's slowly. I think it shouldn't be the gaming tsunami. It should be like the White Walkers from Game of Thrones. They're slowly
Slowly
coming. Yeah,
arriving
they're slowly arriving, but whenever they hit, they're gonna hit like a storm.
and then die in one episode.
Yep.
I really hope that's
Uh,
not how it ends.
oh no, exactly. Yeah. Now that you mention it, let's go back to the tsunami.
Yeah, let's just keep it with that.
The gaming
Um,
tsunami. Yeah, but yeah, on other gaming news, yeah, I was trying to look at what were some of the bigger things that happened in the extra day that we had because of the time that we recorded last time, and there are two that I found very noteworthy. So,
yes.
Paul, you see this other one that I put
Oh,
here?
I do. Yes, I do. And I really hope it's both real and as good as I'm hoping it will be. We are talking about the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic possible remake
Mm-hmm.
coming. Oh my goodness, Knights of the Old Republic was one of my first delves into something that wasn't like mainstream Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I got it on a whim with my cousin Jamie
Mm-hmm.
on the PC, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I see it's Star Wars. There's Jedi. I'm down, and I got roped into it hard because I also didn't get into much on like that real time RPG
Mm-hmm.
that much back in the day, and it was a lot more than I bargained for. Probably a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more mature than I should have been when I was playing it, but
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness, the idea of being able to be good and bad and all of that still holds with me today, even if the game itself might not hold up to visuals.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it was the stepping off stone for a lot of other games that were inspired by it. The MMO was based off it,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's really true, I still hold out hope on it because things like Dying Light 2, if that can get canceled
Yeah,
so
it's not
close to
canceled.
being
It's
released,
indefinitely delayed. It's
I
still happening.
mean,
It's still happening.
eventually maybe, but I've heard too many times of that being like, oh, it's indefinitely delayed, and then it just disappears forever one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my big thing with this Star Wars: The Old Republic remake is, from what I was reading in the news, what they're saying is that they're trying to mix both Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords. They're
Hmm.
trying to mix it all together. They want to give this the full remake treatment, like Final Fantasy VII and
Oh,
Resident Evil 2.
oh, that's
And
gutsy.
what they're trying to do is that they're trying to do it like this because doing it like this is gonna canonize Knights of the Old Republic back into
Also
canon,
true.
because Knights of the Old these games and the Old Republic were unfortunately victims of Disney's stupid decision of saying, "Oh yeah, everything EU that is not the Clone Wars, Rebels, and episodes 1 through 6, and everything
Anything
that we
we
put."
don't own,
Yeah, well, they technically own it, but everything that we start doing here, this is canon now. Everything that came before is legends. So,
right?
but reading the companion visual thing that they released for Rise of Skywalker, one of the designs that they had there was inspired, and they named it Darth Revan, which for
Yeah,
every
Darth Revan.
yeah, for Revan or whatever, yeah, whatever you call it, I forgot. So apparently, like Rise of Skywalker, inadvertently, without us knowing, kind of canonized Knights of the Old Republic. And if this game is made now under the blessing of Disney, now that the story of Revan, now it's actual canon now, because just like the Battlefront 2 campaign is canon for some reason, and the Jedi Fallen Order campaign is canon.
Hmm.
Uh, this would be canon. And I think it's one of the Knights of the Old Republic is one of the greatest gaming stories ever told. Period.
Yes.
And for it to like be back and be consider itself canonized would be such a baller move, especially because right now Disney is in damage control with the brand after Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
That once again another Star Wars movie that came out very divisive. Um, After the last two movies. So there and Clone Wars finally happening that should bring back more positivity in a few more weeks.
Oh, that's right.
So yes, if they're doing that, that would be really interesting, and especially
Hmm.
because the guy that reported this rumor is the one that confirmed the rumor for Obi-Wan Kenobi series before it got revealed. So I think there is some merit to this. Now here is the big question: who
Yeah.
is making it? Because remember,
Right.
Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic was BioWare that made it,
BioWare, and
and
I don't really trust them lately.
exactly, and especially right now they have their plates full because
Also true.
the new Dragon Age was announced 2 years ago. They mentioned something about already pre-production is starting for them to bring back Mass Effect, and they're going through the whole revamp for Anthem. So I'm like, okay,
I
you got
forgot
your
about Anthem, honestly.
exactly. Everyone has, and unfortunately, but they still want to make it happen. They're still
I
gonna,
mean, props to them
yeah,
because, I mean, I've seen you and I have talked about it before. Just the idea that
games.
companies have not given up on it
Mhm.
and really put the effort back into a game and really turned it around.
Exactly.
Um,
And this is the generation of the comeback. So
hmm.
I would say Anthem has the steepest hill to climb of all of them. From all that the games that launched bad that eventually became good, like No Man's Sky, Destiny, Division, the Halo
Hmm.
Master Chief Collection. Like yeah, they had the steepest hill to climb. Sorry.
That's it.
Because Anthem was bad. Like those other games that didn't launch good
Objectively.
yeah, it's objectively bad. It's objectively a bad game that launched busted to the core, while games like Destiny and No Man's Sky and all that launched incomplete, were not what they were promised, and blah blah blah. But at least they had a core. They had like that one core that was so good that if they could only capitalize on it over time, that's why they became what they became now. So
Right.
Anthem didn't have that core, so they have even more extra work to do to find the thing that makes Anthem click, which to
Hmm.
me was the flying, but that's not something that's gonna save that game. You being
Right.
like the Iron Man, like the shooting
Hmm.
was bad and all that. So yeah, and they're supposedly working on that huge Anthem revamp. So who is making this? And I'm trying to look because this is remember this is EA own studio. So Dice is still working on Battlefront stuff, and they're still trying to get Battlefield 5 into
Which
shape.
is impressive that
Yeah,
they're still trying that, but
yeah, but well, Battlefront has paid off. Like it was Celebration
true.
Edition last year, so their work has actually paid off, and they actually had I didn't put it here because it's kind of boring because we don't need to talk about financials, but they kind of mentioned that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order sold 10 million copies,
Oh,
which
turn up. That's
yeah,
awesome.
which was 8 million more than they had anticipated,
Oh,
considering
heck
because of the projections that they had
yeah.
because it was a single player game.
I'm
So
so glad that game took off.
CEA people want single player games. Remember, they were the ones 3 years ago. They're like
Yeah,
people no longer want single player games.
nobody
They want
wants.
yeah.
Hmm.
But over and over time again, like when God of War murdered, Spider-Man murdered, Red Dead Redemption murdered,
Hmm.
strong single player games. Assassin's Creed keep murdering. Like there's your proof, and especially
Yeah,
if your game is good, because that's the thing. Like word of mouth helped Jedi Fallen Order, and it sold a lot.
very
So
true.
yeah, and it makes me curious who's working. But now let's put some tinfoil hats here, Paul.
Oh boy.
What if the guys making this Knights of the Old Republic remake is Respawn?
This would be, if I'm not mistaken, that would be the first like attempt even at
An RPG
RPGs
for them?
for Respawn. I feel like they have so much on their plate though.
Yeah, but how
Um,
about instead of making a sequel for Jedi Fallen Order, they make the canonical remake for KOTOR with
mm,
Jedi Fallen Order combat instead of the turn-based thing, with the level of storytelling production that they showed that
oh,
they were capable of.
I'm
Because
following you.
because I wanted to use a little inside baseball. You know, one of the writers for Jedi Fallen Order
Hmm.
wrote for Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I found that out very recently. So because remember, the story of that game was actually really good, the narrative.
Yeah.
So imagine if they take now, and you had the conversations when you were talking with Sari, with Greasy, you know that
Hmm.
there was actually some downtime that you can have in that game and all that.
Yeah.
Imagine you put that with a little bit more depth, and you're the one that takes over for Knights of the Old Republic with the
Mm.
and while you leave Bioware be Bioware in its own corner as they're trying to rebuild itself. I would
I
think that would be good. I would say, based considering that Respawn right now is EA's current best studio, they earned that title last year.
yeah.
Uh, why not let them do it? Because they're still going to be doing Star Wars, like
Yeah.
especially how it's sold, Jedi Fallen Order sold.
Oh yeah.
That basically guarantees it, which I'm so glad that it happened. Because
I'd
now,
say my only worry about that is I want Jedi Fallen Order 2 so much faster that I wouldn't want them to split their focus on another Star Wars game, even if it technically means two games that are Star Wars.
but if
I
it's basically Jedi Fallen Order 2, but not the Knights of the Old Republic story,
but I'm
isn't it?
still really into like what they're moving forward with Jedi Fallen Order. Like
Yeah.
endless possibilities with that one. I agree that it would be fantastic if
Mm-hmm.
they did Knights of the Old Republic as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know if it can do the
Yeah,
justice.
my thing is because of my whole desire of them canonizing officially the Revan story again. I'd
Mhm.
rather them put Jedi Fallen Order, because the thing with Jedi Fallen Order is that it doesn't end on a cliffhanger. It ends definitively.
It
Like it's
does.
yeah, so it's like there's no like setup for a nail biting sequel for you to for you to be like waiting on. So it's like they managed to close the book. It does feel like they closed the book in a way so that if for some reason that game didn't sell or anything, and that at least they wouldn't leave anything hanging in the case EA gave them the axe of no longer working on
Right.
Star Wars. So I feel Jedi Fallen Order has closed the book at least on what it was wanting to tell there. So why not let's canonize Revan again so we can recanonize that era because
I
as
could see that.
exactly so. And again, this is not official thing. This is just my
Oh,
tinfoil hat, my very
yeah.
big tinfoil hat that I put in that no one can see because we're not in video
All
yet.
right.
So,
I'm gonna throw a new hat in that ring. If
mm,
we're talking about the possibility of Respawn doing another Star Wars related game, I say it's time that people finally recognize the amazingness of the Darth Bane books. Make a
mm.
video game in the style of Jedi Fallen Order with Darth Bane as the main character growing in his dark powers. On Alejandro, I don't know how much you know about Darth Bane.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I know about
Um,
Darth Bane.
for anybody listening that doesn't know, Darth Bane is the one that created the rule of two back like during that Knights of the Old Republic, but
Mm-hmm.
even before, I think. He was the one that no, actually, I think it was after because originally the Sith had like their whole army.
Mm-hmm.
They had their like a ton of Sith, and he's like, "This is garbage. You're splitting the dark side power between all of you, and you're all weak. I'm going to show you how much more powerful you are." And he wipes out all
Mm-hmm.
of the Sith and most of the Jedi in one move, and decides to just like start going on this reign of terror.
This was the Sith Wars, right? If I remember
Yes,
correctly.
this is
Yeah.
which is still technically canon if I'm remembering right,
Well,
because they
and
mention it.
Clone Wars shows Reap as shows Darth Bane,
Yes,
voiced by Mark Hamill on the season
uh,
6 finale, which
I
was
forgot he was voiced by Mark Hamill. I
yeah, it
knew
was
he was the Vision.
the Vision of Yoda, but yeah, it was voiced by Mark Hamill.
But I'm referring to like the loss of all the Jedi and all the Sith in
Mm-hmm.
this I forget what it's called. It's like a dark mass bomb or something. It was like using the Force. It
Mm-hmm.
traps all of them in this like endless pit of suffering, and like they're all frozen in time, and it's like permanently there.
Mm-hmm.
But like they briefly mentioned it in something that's canon. I can't remember what, but basically he was the one that did that. And then he goes on to try like wiping out the rest of the Jedi, taking on his apprentice. Um, Figures out some amazing stuff about the dark side and just power in general. And I won't spoil the last of it, but it's just some amazing stuff that leaves you wanting more. And I would love if they made a video game out of that.
I mean, there's so that's the beauty of the why I stand by the old Republic era. Like everything before the prequels is
Mm-hmm.
the most rich era for Star Wars to delve to dive right now.
Oh yeah.
Like I think we can safely say that the sequel era is the worst era, like the most least inspired era of of the saga right now. I think there's so much that you can mine out of
Mm-hmm.
the all that era that was touching the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic and all of that. And I think Disney gets it because that's why we're going backwards now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be awesome if we could get that. I think that's what the future of Star Wars will be focused on right now, as they're trying, as now the stigma of the prequels are like being eliminated, considering how everyone seems to now hate the sequel trilogy. I feel now the prequel era is not as poison goods as it used to be, because that was the conventional wisdom that everyone hated the prequel. So let's stay away
Right.
from that. Let's go back to the original era and all that. Even though from lore perspectives and all that, I always thought that the prequel era was the coolest one of all of them. And even then, the in between era, the one that we received in Jedi Fallen Order, is still the one of the cooler periods,
Right.
because there's so much can happen there. So
Yeah, because that's technically prequel era. Is even
exactly. So it toying the line
yeah.
in a way, yeah, and making the prequel era even more poignant
Oh
in the
yeah.
NFL and order. So yeah, I'm very excited to, and I hope that this pans out, especially now that we're heading into a new generation of consoles. Imagine
Mhm.
how good that could look. But hey,
Oh yes.
hopefully, sometime this year, if E3 is still a thing, or if or any of these companies decide to have a show where they can reveal some stuff to do their pitch for the next generation, hopefully they at least show a logo that they're working on
Hmm.
this. That would be big, and nothing would engender more goodwill towards EA than a Knights of the Old Republic remake, and done right, like, and not just an upres, an actual remake.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's hope. And finally, the final news. This is something that I think was broke yesterday.
Yeah, I
And
believe so. That's what you posted. So I'll let you
yes,
take the lead on this one.
yeah. So in 3.5 years, from 2017 to 2020, the Nintendo Switch has outsold the Xbox One,
Hmm.
a system that has been 7 years in the market. That, and somehow Nintendo, let's remember, the Wii U, a complete and utter disaster that couldn't sell more than 12 or 13 million units in 5 years. Nintendo managed to sell the Xbox One in 3.5 years. That is nuts. But also, that is incredible, because I think Switch is now at 52 million. And why we know that Switch has outsold the Xbox One is because last time that Microsoft reported numbers was when they were like in the 30, 20 or 30 million, or even before that. But they were so ashamed of how the PlayStation 4 was trouncing them, was like completely obliterating them, with them announcing how much it had sold and all that, that if they said how much they were selling, they would look so inferior. So they stopped reporting the numbers. We just have conjecture of how much it sold, because we have companies like EA saying that there's 150 million in or something like 140 million consoles in the market. And you can infer, okay, how much has Sony said that they have sold? Okay, they have sold this much. They have sold 90. How
Hmm.
much has the Xbox One? So then you can extrapolate how much the numbers have been. But because Microsoft got shamed out of as announcing their numbers,
Yeah.
uh, you can only highly assume that the Nintendo Switch has already completely overly taken it, which is insane. And it
Hmm.
just goes to show that poor how the everlasting damage 2013 had on the Xbox One, with the always online, no use game thing, Kinect always on $500. That it seems that they were never able to shake off that stigma the way that Sony was able to shake off the $600
Hmm.
stigma of the PS3. It's really sad, because I feel Microsoft, especially right now that I have the Xbox One again, that I got it really cheap, and getting to redouble on the things that they were doing with the Game Pass and all these very pro consumer moves. I
Hmm.
feel and them actually doing game streaming right with xCloud, doing it right, not what Google, the abortion that Google is doing right now.
Hmm.
Um, which, by the way, I didn't even put in the news. They said that people were complaining that there have been no games announced for Stadia, and Google was like, "Oh, it's up to developers to announce the games that they want to put on Stadia." And I'm like, "Wow, this thing is not gonna last
Hmm.
for 2 years. That's bad. That's like bad. If that's the stance of it. If you would believe in this thing, you would try to push. to try to get content, and you will showcase that content. But if they're giving it to the developers, they just goes to show you that Google really doesn't care.
Yep.
And Microsoft is actually doing it right with xCloud, and eventually tying it to Game Pass to actually make it the true Netflix of games.
Which is very surprising. That's something that I did do is I picked up PlayStation Now
mm-hmm,
over this past week, and I actually completely forgot about that until you mentioned it.
mm-hmm,
Just the idea that you spend $10 for the month and then you get access to all these hundreds of games.
mm-hmm.
And
That's what Game Pass has been doing.
mhm,
And
right,
Game Pass has been doing it better than PS Now, because PS Now initially was just streaming,
and it was
uh,
$20.
and it was $20 exactly, and they basically forced Sony to drop the price and finally start putting downloaded games. Unfortunately, the most interesting things in that PlayStation Now catalog, the PS3 games, are only available on streaming because the PS3 architecture is such a freaking mess
Hmm.
with the cell processor and all that, that it's pretty much incompatible with the PC architecture of the PS4, how they did it. So
Yeah,
it's like, and those are the more compelling games. That's why I still have my PS3 plugged in.
right.
That library was so awesome, and then Microsoft figured it out to make it, because remember, Xbox One wasn't backwards compatible when it came out. In fact, good old the old president Don Matrick, whenever he was asked the question, is the Xbox One backwards compatible? No, because if you really want backwards compatibility, we think that's pretty backwards. That's literally what he said.
Hmm.
And look how when the new president Phil Spencer took over and they started the backwards compatibility initiative, when initially they say this machine is not designed to play all games, and now they play them and even better. It goes to show you, like, Microsoft really has been putting, because they're on their back foot, they're
Mm,
making all these pro consumer moves.
true.
So it's really sad seeing that they're in the third place, but I think that may be better for them, because if they keep this pro consumer thing going to when the Xbox Series X launches, as long as they don't botch the pricing and all of that and anything else,
Hmm.
I feel they can really overtake, and they're not gonna have the stigma that they're stuck with right now, that the freaking Nintendo Switch overtook from them. Which, by the way, the Switch is an awesome machine. I wish it had more stuff that I could play over there, because
Totally agree.
the Switch is just my party machine right now. If
Yeah,
I it's the only thing that I'm finding any good use for right now is, like, if I have friends over, Mario Kart or Smash or Mario
yep.
Party, then. But hey, it's like, it's a compelling device that will take it with you. So congrats to Nintendo, and also just to add there, Luigi's Mansion sold 5 million copies, which is awesome. And
Okay.
yeah, and Pokemon Sword and Shield, the game everyone hated, or apparently that's what the
Hmm.
internet, the crybabies at Twitter want to make you believe, sold 16 million copies.
Dude, that blows my
16,
mind
yeah.
so much.
It goes to show you, you know what's so funny? Whenever you see outrage in the internet,
Hmm.
don't believe it, because it's just grandstanding. Because in the end, you have to vote with your wallet. If
Hmm.
they actually hated what they were saying, they wouldn't have bought that game.
Yep.
That sends the message. It doesn't matter how much you harass anyone on Twitter. It doesn't matter how much you scream at something. If you still end up purchasing it, it's like, you screaming is literally corporations putting their fingers in their ears. They don't care,
Mm.
because
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter, because the only thing that matters to them is the money. And 16 million copies show them that, yep, they're gonna keep half-assing Pokemon now, because even though with all the complaints that the Sword and Shield had with how incomplete it felt and all stuff, it didn't matter, because it
Hmm.
still sold a lot. Apparently, it even sold more than X, Y, and Z, or whatever those Pokemons sold on 3DS, which goes to show you.
I don't think there was ever actually a Pokemon Z, even, which is crazy to imagine.
Yeah, so it's just X and Y, right? Whatever
Yeah.
that those things were called. So, yeah, it just goes to show you that the internet is always a funny thing, and everyone are keyboard warriors until they aren't. All
Yeah.
right, Paul. So, do you have anything else to add? Any
I
news that I may have
believe
missed?
we have talked over everything that we wanted to chat on. Of course, there's always new things happening every day, things
Mm-hmm.
that go under our radar. And I've been a little out of connection as well, trying to handle everything back at home. But
Mm-hmm.
my goodness, has been so many things starting to ramp up that I'm so excited for this year. All the possibilities that everybody's doing. I think Xbox for sure, Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
specifically has been still on the same kind of like not quite damage control, but they've been really trying to fix their brand ever since
Mm-hmm.
the I almost said DMV the thing that
The
that
DRM,
acronym,
DRM,
yeah,
DRM.
DRM,
Mm-hmm.
back at that E3 forever ago, and they've been ever since really trying to work on the idea of like giving back, giving people an opportunity to like save a lot of money. A lot of their
Mm-hmm.
free games for the month have
Yeah.
been really high hitting games. If I
And
was
all their
remembering right.
exclusives, like every new exclusive that they release will be available on Game Pass. PS
Also
Now,
true.
yeah, and PS Now is like the big exclusives will have to wait for them to be there because
Yep.
Sony wants you to buy those games. So it goes to
Right.
show you the how different their approach is, and Sony's doing this because they're winning.
Mm-hmm.
They're winning. They're winning because they can sell a lot. You have 106 million PlayStation 4s out there. So if only 20 million of those buy their exclusive, that's still a lot of money. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's why that's the approach that they have. And if Microsoft continues this way, man, the Game Pass is what has justified me getting this machine again. And I knew I wanted it again ever since Game Pass became a thing because so many cool indie games can show up there and have like a chance to succeed
Oh
because the
yes.
barrier of entry is so little.
Mm-hmm.
The Outer Wilds, as a lot of people's game of the year last year, it's like this space traveling game that's like Majora's Mask, became huge because it was a Game Pass title last year. And I downloaded and I'm gonna start downloading it in a little bit because I need to be in the right mood for that kind of game. But like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like those kind of games become possible for a system like this. So even though I'm still gonna be a PlayStation main, you same as you, that's where I build all my trophies and my
Yep.
libraries and all that. It's good to feel like there's something of value in that other machine, especially with the backwards compatibility that
Mm-hmm.
justifies all this huge library that I have behind me, just staring in my closet. Because most of those discs still work, and they work there
True.
on the Xbox One. So yeah, and all those games are even gonna work on the Series X. Everything that's backwards compatible now is gonna move forward. So
Right.
really crazy. And
Um,
right now we just wait for Sony's move. We're at the end. So just a little inside baseball. In
mm-hmm.
2013, on January 31st, Sony sent invitations for the Future of PlayStation meeting. We're on the 31st of this year. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a chance that before we even finish recording, or maybe after we finish recording, we will hear news that of when they're doing their event. And
Oh boy.
if they don't send it by now, then we know they're playing a different game. And I'm really curious, when are they gonna open their mouths and start
Oh
giving
yes.
details? Because we only know about one game for the PS5, Godfall.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to hear details. What's their backwards compatibility system? Are the rumors true? Are all the PlayStations going to be backwards compatible with this thing? Because that would be insane.
That would be amazing. I'm
Yeah, but
so looking forward to that.
we'll save that for another time. Paul, I have something that I put in for X-Reel section that I just wanted to discuss. So
Yes.
can you
Go
please
ahead and
press X for X-Reel?
the sound of a
Dun
little
dun
old.
dun 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 so
I had to like move my headset as far away from me as possible to do that.
so yeah, that's I think that will be our song for X-Reel. Hopefully we don't get copyright strike. I doubt it.
Yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, for I didn't mention this in the scene section because I completely forgot to mention it because we're so let's talk about the games. But one thing that I did see this week, and I feel that I just wanted to know because I even wrote a review about it.
Mhm.
Arrow, one of my go-to shows over the last 8 years, came to an end this Tuesday, and that to
How
me,
was
since
it?
it was. Did you read my review by any chance?
I didn't read it, but
uh,
we've talked about it and
yes.
looked at your posts.
Yes, exactly. So, Arrow is a series that has had a lot of highs and lows in its 8 year span. I feel like whenever that show came on in those first two seasons, it was the greatest superhero thing I'd ever seen. Like, it was the level of confidence in its choreography and its storytelling, even though it has some cheesiness here and there. It was very hard hitting, and it was such a cool show, and especially how it paved the way for this whole Arrowverse that spawned all these different shows and universe in the same way that Iron Man spawned the MCU.
Right.
However, then as the universe started to getting bigger, Arrow started slipping a little bit in quality because the guys that made the show started focusing themselves in these other shows and get them up and running. That
Mm-hmm.
then the show went on a lot of highs and lows. The highs of season 1 and 2, and then the slip of quality in the third season, and the low point that was the fourth season. Then a comeback they did on their fifth season, and slipping again on the sixth season after their hard earned goodwill back. They squandered it immediately in the sixth season. But
Mm-hmm.
then a really good seventh season and a really tremendous final season that was
Mm.
short and sweet and led to the Crisis and Infinite Earths crossover. So this show has had so many times where I'm like, this is the best thing ever, and other times I'm like, this is horrible. That this finale encapsulated all of that. When it had so many things, and I'm like, this is why I fell in love with the show for so that long ago, and it reminded me of the point where the show was braver than it ended up being, because it was really brave with the storytelling choices that it was doing. That basically this final season basically ended 2 episodes ago in the Crisis and Infinite Earths crossover. So just for
Mm-hmm.
spoilers for people, so the guy that started it all, Oliver Queen, the Green Arrow, died in the crossover. He sacrificed himself to rebirth a universe that got destroyed by an antimatter wave,
Mm.
and he's the one that was able to rebirth it and rebirth the universe that separated all the different Earths, that makes everything in DC canon. From the Christopher Reeve movie, the '89 Batman, Smallville, and all of that, they canonized everything as one multiverse thanks to that thing, and he was the one responsible for that.
This
So
is impressive.
so when he did that, and the way that they wrote his ultimate role and everything, him being the show that started the whole Arrowverse, and him sacrificing for the rebirth of the Arrowverse that will continue on without him. That's
Mm-hmm.
what Crisis on Infinite Earths was most successful at, for doing that, especially on TV. Because God knows the movies haven't done anything even remotely close to that ambitious yet, or doing it
Not
well.
really.
So, the show could have ended on Crisis, and they still have 2 more episodes. So literally, this was a series finale without the main character. This was literally a funeral.
Dang.
Yeah, they the only time that they showed him up was Arrow was famous for having a parallel stories, always a story in the present and always a flashback story. So they show Oliver Queen in the flashbacks back in his murderous season 1 ways, and in putting a story about how his mission never ends, and how, like, despite whatever, everything can carry it on. And that's how it ties to him being honored by everyone that's left alive in the series finale.
Mm.
And even though the series finale halfway through wastes some weird time where his son gets kidnapped by a weird low guy thug, and everyone just tries to go save his son. I'm like, this isn't necessary for this finale. It's like, this is the kind of plot that you would feel in a filler episode. Like, oh
Mm.
yeah, the villain of the video is like, why are they putting this? And it was them trying to tie back this flashback storyline with a villain that shows up in the flashbacks they put here. And they
Oh.
showed that villain again in the future to be like, oh, this is how we're connecting in one of my final time. That was a little clumsy.
Hmm.
But you take that out, and some of the best parts of that finale, like, I would say just go to YouTube and put Arrow series finale flashback fight, and
Mm.
look at that one shot fight of Green Arrow fighting against like 20 dudes, like John Wick style.
Dang.
Man, it was incredible. It was like, it makes me wonder, why was this show never nominated for like a stunt Emmy? Because I just look at the choreography of that fight. It's insane, and all in one shot. Like,
Huh.
it's so. and uh,
Jeez.
and
Makes me
then
want to go see that.
yeah, just why, like, even if you know, just at least see that fight, and think about, oh, they did that on a TV budget.
Jeez.
So and this show has always had really amazing fight scenes all throughout. That's what it was known for, and they
Hmm.
bowed out with probably their best fight scene ever in a flashback. And in a way, and that's the thing, like, even though, yeah, we're still seeing Oliver Queen in flashback, it doesn't cheapen the fact that he died. They don't bring him back, they don't resurrect him. No, like, they do the Tony Stark thing. They really pulled the Tony Stark from Avengers Endgame with him in a way that worked for this show. and
Right.
and I feel that was really fitting for that. Like, it reminds me how much I hated the show when it's low points, but
Hmm.
seeing that, being reminded that despite those low points, it has some things that hit emotionally, and it reminded me that when it was good, it was really good. I thought it was a nice way to bow out, pun intended. Green Arrow, bow. So yeah, just wanted to give my serious. And had you ever seen Arrow at all, Paul?
None.
Never.
Literally nothing.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
actually, that's not true. I have seen one sort of episode. Somebody was watching it that I knew,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like he was on a boat and there was an
Uh-huh.
island and something was
Yes.
exploding. I was like,
Uh-huh.
"What is this garbage?" I like, no offense to anybody that loves it. I could not get into it because I had just finished like kind of catching up with Agents of Shield,
Mm-hmm.
and there were parts of that that I was like, "Oh, this is kind of soap opera-y." And
Mm-hmm.
then when I saw the part of Arrow that was like, "This just feels like a soap opera, but they're
Mm-hmm.
using superhero names," and
Mm-hmm.
I could not deal with it.
Yeah, I would say because there were parts where their reach exceeded their grasp. I think I know which part you're thinking of, but
Hmm.
I say like especially now starting next week, the entire series will be Netflix, all 8 seasons,
I heard
because
about that.
yeah, because it's the CW shows do this thing where they sign a contract with Netflix that whenever a show airs a finale, a week later the entire season will be there. So
Nice.
that was like really cool because before you would have to be like, will this be the month in June, July, or August? Is this when you're gonna put the old season so I can rewatch it before the next season starts? They
Hmm.
started doing the whole thing of like a week later, it's gonna show up there.
Huh.
And I think that hurt their ratings because a lot of people were like, well, I'll just wait for the show to end because the entire season will be there.
Right.
But I say give it a shot. It's like it's good more often. It's entertaining, like most of the time. I'd say like I'm actually gonna make a post in the future for our website. I'm gonna rank all the seasons, and I may do
Hmm.
that like the 10 essential episodes to at least see.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah, so at least I can tell you at least watch this and let me know what it because there's a lot of episodes also, and I understand that in this era where a lot of shows launch with 8, 9, 10 episode seasons, that one's
Hmm.
like 23 a season because it's a
Jeez.
because that's broadcast.
Yeah.
It may be a lot, so that's why at least I kind of want to put the very best ones. Uh, at the very least, watch the crossovers, like the seeing crossovers on TV that actually worked. That started
Hmm.
with Arrow and Flash, and I feel the legacy they leaves behind on that is really cool because I never expected to see that on my TV screen as a DC fan, especially with being done dirty by the movies over and over. At the very least, until the last few ones, which have been actually really good. And apparently, Birds of Prey, people are saying it's actually good. So I
Yeah.
guess DC is finally hitting its stride with the movies. Finally. So yeah, that was X Real. So
No, we definitely will get copy
yeah.
struck with that.
That's why I didn't
Um,
finish it because you know you
oh
get copy strike if you do a song that's like 30 seconds. I think there's a fair use thing of like 30
They
seconds.
say, but YouTube doesn't actually care. I have had it happen to me. There's been like 8 seconds of a song that was not even in the video that I used when I was streaming a video game,
Mm-hmm.
and they wouldn't let me repeal it. It's all crazy.
Nice.
So I always err on the side of caution now.
All right,
But
yes. We'll
in any
figure out. Yeah, we still have to figure out the B-roll and the and our song transitions. But until then, until the actual production value happens, we're still gonna do the songs as we make our transitions.
that we will.
So, Paul, I think that with my Aerithos, I think that's it for this episode. Which I think after we did a very short one last week, I think we may have gone back to a long one again. We'll
Yeah, I
see.
don't
Yeah, we'll see how much it is. But hey, we had some really fun conversations today
Oh yes.
with me posting. So, Paul, before we leave, where can people find you?
We can find us. Wait, you can find us at Statix Media on Facebook. Statix Media on what? Are we on Twitter?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are on Twitter. We're on YouTube at Statix Media as well. This is probably what you're watching it through. And then we
Mm-hmm.
are also working on putting this podcast and all previous episodes on our
Yes,
SoundCloud,
yes.
Spotify.
We promised that last week. We're still working on that. For some reason, it
Yes.
still hasn't happened. But we promise you, we will be in your podcast service on your choice because I know that hearing a podcast in YouTube for some people may not be their choice, but they're their most favorite choice. But rest assured, we're still working with our guys to
Yes.
put those episodes. It's just some weird back end issues that are preventing it from happening. But yeah, you should be until then. You can still see our episodes here on YouTube. Our own PJ is still doing his some videos for Smash. If you want to go there and support him, we like cross promoting stuff. Our own Zach, who's our go-to artist and does a lot of our thumbnails. He also has his own channel, Pathological Loser, that is a very interesting, sardonic style of comedy that, especially very deadpan in a way that I really appreciate. That if you want to go and see his art, his very interesting art evolve. You can definitely go look at that. And you can, where can they follow you, Paul?
They can follow me at either, man, I've been trying to work on putting my all my Instagram drawing art up on that at Angel Sword 21.
Mm-hmm.
As far as YouTube goes, I'm on Dork of Art, just all one word, capital D, capital A. I only have a handful of things up right there right now, but I am working on putting a few more
Yeah, for
soon.
people that didn't know, Paul's also an artist, which is
Yes,
something that I
I
had
am.
sort of forgotten a little bit.
And I'm on Twitch as well, also at Angel Sword 21, which is my
Yes.
gamer tag.
Yeah, which
So
by the way, it's a good thing that you mentioned Twitch, because I think eventually something that we definitely want to start with statics. At least we want to start doing streams, just us playing whatever we want to be playing at least once a week. We just have
I'd
to
like to
figure,
do that.
yeah, we just have to figure out the right date for us.
Hmm.
And it can be either you streaming it or me streaming it. We'll see. Like, we're still trying to figure out how
Yeah,
we
we can
can bolster our contents. It's not just a podcast being put there, but hey, we're just 4 people now, so
That is
we're
true.
trying to make it all happen. So,
Hmm.
all right, Paul. So it was a pleasure getting to talk with you. I'll see you next week, and remember
Press X to
to
play.
play.